It's a joy to have you here at the annual meeting of the Leaves. When understanding changes the standpoints of life and intelligence from a material to a spiritual basis, we shall gain the reality of life, the control of soul over sense, and we shall perceive Christianity or truth in its divine principle. Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. Everyone is included in this true Christianity. It's a working together as one that is bringing healing at the Leaves and to the community. Thank you for your wonderful support. The Board of the Leaves is essentially metaphysical, but naturally practical, with the understanding that divine love supports all of us. Enjoy this annual meeting prepared by our terrific staff and wonderful executive director. And now, I'd like to introduce our new president of the board, John Boren.
I'm John Boren, the newly appointed board president for the Leaves. I'm so appreciative of the sense of togetherness at the Leaves and for the support it gives to our inward and outward community. During the last year, the Leaves has broadened its branches and it has worked to join hands and hearts by deepening connections and relationships through friendly visits and tours, church workshops, and for professional development opportunities for our expanding staff. Especially important, though, is our commitment to meet the needs of our patients and residents. This year has demonstrated that in supporting one another, we can work together and see the value that Christian Science nursing brings to all of us. Thank you for joining us today.
Welcome, everyone, as we join together in this auditorium of spirit. I'm Peggy Lang, a practitioner of Christian Science healing and a member of the Board of Trustees here at the Leaves. Mary Baker Eddy has over 90 references to the word unity among all her writings. It is in this sense of unity that we come together behind one purpose. We may ask, what is that one purpose? Is it not God? Keeping God at the forefront of all that we think and do brings a sure success in our service to God, to our fellow man, and to ourselves. In the opening pages of Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy, she writes, "The divine principle of healing is proved in the personal experience of any sincere seeker of truth. Its purpose is good." For me, this describes all that goes on at the Leaves. It describes how management, staff, residents, visitors, patients, practitioners, and supporters all come together for that one purpose, serving God good. With God as the one purpose, the mission cannot fail to succeed, and that success is seen in the practical healings happening every day here at the Leaves and in the new construction going on to serve the staff, which is part of the full circle of God's blessings. Your very presence here includes you and the wonderful blessings going on at the Leaves for the good of all. Thank you for your part in this wonderful day.
My name is Gifty Deborah, a member of the Board of Trustees. I've been most grateful to witness the togetherness of all the members of staff at the Leaves. The maintenance, kitchen, and operations team all work together with one purpose, and that is to serve God and our fellow man. During quarterly meetings with the members of staff at the Leaves, I feel they're all happy doing their jobs. This needed task of serving and expressing God's love to all, especially those needing to see it most in action. Enjoy the rest of our program. Thank you.
Welcome to the Leaves annual meeting for 2023. The past year has been full of demonstrations of God's care for man. Our theme this year is working together with one purpose, inspired by Philippians 2:2. Be like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. The theme was set not long after last year's annual meeting, and it's a theme we've worked to demonstrate all year. I hope that's reflected as you hear reports from staff and see pictures of how we've worked to carry out this holy work together. We doubled the number of church workshops we conducted from the previous year. We toured and visited with many Christian Science nursing and Christian Science organizations, and we held a Christian Science practitioners and teachers tour at the Leaves. These are just a few of our outreaches this year. You'll also hear more from 3 delightful guest speakers. A historian and author, Cindy Safranoff, will help tell us about how Christian Science churches have been formed by working together in the past. Christian Science practitioner John Cochran and Christian Science nurse Patty Nuremberg will speak about how they are currently working in Christian Science to bring people together. What comes to thought for me when I think about working together is very much a biblical image of those big fishing nets. When someone's grasp is a little fainter on the net than the others would naturally draw closer and strengthen their pull to help balance out the catch. It's a very vivid image for me. We all help to harmonize and work together because we need each other. We all are capable of diverse qualities, and we all are individual and have strengths in different areas. Letting those unique, strong qualities shine give a genuine, diverse, and powerful team. And that's what we have here at the Leaves and in our Christian Science communities. Let's celebrate those strengths we each have, lean on them and each other when needed, and lend your strengths as well. This is how we work together and progress our movement forward.
We all got here by wanting to be of service, and our love for God and man, our love for Christian Science has brought us all together. All of the improvements just continue to show and point out to all of us is that we work together as a family. Everything's safer, everything's newer. We've been able to do all of that with that thought in mind, that we're a family. And every day that I come in here, I am very privileged to work for this family. What I've noticed in this last year is we've made this campus more family friendly. It's attracted more nurses. And with more of a nursing staff, we've been able to take more patients. And it's just been great to see that for the first time in a decade that we can take care of all of our operational needs.
Hi everyone, my name is Ty Bennett and I'm the Operations and Development Manager here at the Leaves. What a great year it has been for all of us at the Leaves. As we began looking for ways that we could continue to work together with one purpose, with our staff, patients, residents, and our outside community, this focus has enabled us to host care workshops at churches throughout the 7 states that we serve. Jennifer Johnson and I were able to travel to 7 other Christian Science nursing facilities and learn from them and be able to share with them all the good that we have occurring at the Leaves. We are delighted when we think about the opportunities of collaboration with other Christian Science organizations as we look towards continued and new ways to meet the needs of our community. We are so grateful for all the good that's occurring here at the Leaves, and I'm confident that you too will be able to be witness to that as you continue to watch our 2023 annual meeting. Thanks so much.
In thinking about this year's annual theme, working together with one purpose, I reflect back on an experience I had a couple of years ago here at the Leaves. While I was working, I had a mobility challenge, and I was able to work from home for a couple of weeks. But when I returned to work, I was really grateful for all the support of my coworkers. Two of my coworkers came alternating days and weeks to pick me up and took me home every day just so I could be at work to do my job. And there were certain aspects of my job that I couldn't do easily since I was on crutches. And yet people just stepped up and filled in for me so that I could do the parts of my job that I needed to. To me, that is really an example of how all of us at the Leaves work together with one purpose. We support each other as a team, and we support each other metaphysically, and that's the most important part. All the support I felt was just so helpful in seeing that healing and experiencing that. I will be forever grateful for that experience.
Practitioners Day was such a wonderful event at the Leaves. We had a group of local practitioners that came. We gave them a tour of the facility and showed them all of our updates. We had a talk from Sunnyside and the Principal Foundation. It was so much fun preparing for this event with our staff members. We have added a lot more activities on the Christian Science Nursing Wing. We listened to the Bible Lens, articles from the Journal and Sentinel, the Sentinel Watch, the podcast from the Mary Baker Eddy Library, Biblos Foundation videos and articles, long year videos and articles, and lectures. We also added a weekly craft or an activity on both sides. Creekside residents do get the luxury of going out, shopping, going to the Dallas Arboretum, and going to museums. One thing that really has stood out to me is that the Christian Science nurses have embraced me with welcoming arms. I bring my 6-month-old to work sometimes, and the Christian Science nurses always have a willing hand to watch her while I do the activities with the patients. In my role, I feel connected with all the departments. At times, some of the departments need assistance. I feel that I try to help them as they help me. It comes down to love. Love everybody and everything makes a healing and harmonious environment.
This year, it's been awesome to watch the Leaves really embody this year's annual meeting topic, working together with one purpose. I've seen that demonstrated by the workshops they have traveled to and hosted, all geared around care. There's a focus on Christian Science nursing and on engaging and revitalizing the care committees at branch churches. It's a touch point that lets everybody know that not only are we there for them, but that they can be there for each other, to care for and support their fellow church members, thinking in the way that a Christian Science nurse might think. It's an opportunity to be the Good Samaritan, and it's awesome to see people embrace that.
We had a class on the history of Christian Science nursing, and a couple of senior staff were part of the class, and every department was represented. And I realized that we all need the same foundation to do our work. The bylaw that's stated in Manual for Christian Science nursing applies to every single Christian Scientist, not only nurses, because we all need that practical knowledge of Christian Science practice. So it was really an eye-opener for me to see that As a team, we need everyone to make our purpose at the Leaves grow, flourish, progress. The abundance of nurses that we've had this year, and because we have enough Christian Science nurses, we're able to open our doors for anyone who calls.
In miscellany, all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called for His purpose. There have been so many healings that have occurred over the past year, to where so many patients came with different care needs. There's also been healings between staff members. We've also had some beautiful healings talking about the facility improvement and upgrading. I believe the future of Christian Science nursing and working in togetherness, it's all about letting go and letting God. To me, I feel that's the whole purpose of the whole working in togetherness, because I cannot do nothing of myself but what the Father leads me to do. So that will I do. And we can't work separately. We can only work for the same common purpose, and that will help uplift us spiritually, morally, and even physically. Because when we work together, we become a strong team, and we can do a whole lot. We can accomplish a whole lot too.
For this year, we had classes. One class with two candidates, Christian Science nurses, one who came from overseas, and we are so happy that we have them here, and we are also grateful to the field that is supporting our ministry here at the Leaves, and we're looking forward to have more individuals come to our practice of Christian Science nursing. Thank you so much for your support, practitioners who are supporting our ministry and the field itself too. And I want to thank the churches and our donors who are supporting our ministry. We're very thankful for all you do to support this ministry and making the Leaves as a place for us to be and practice the ministry of Christian Science nursing.
We are at the Leaves. We keep everything in one mind. We are doing God's work, and we are doing it with all the love from our heart, and we think about, we are expecting more healings and working better in the future.
As a level 1 Christian Science nurse, I've just really been enjoying working with all the other Christian Science nurses. This being my first year of doing this, I've learned so much from them. I think that the more senior level nurses just provide so much expertise and knowledge to help me as I'm being trained to do my duties. And it's just been I can't emphasize enough how great of an experience it's been to learn from them and see their professionalism, their service, their dedication. And so I've just really enjoyed this experience working together with everyone at the Leaves.
I've been working as a Christian Science nurse previously in other facilities, but when I arrived here, I felt like I was home. And what caught my attention was the harmony which goes on in this place, right from the administrative staff, the Christian Science nurses, the housekeeping, and even the maintenance staff. Everybody works in harmony towards achieving the same goal of healing to our patients. A few months ago, there's a lady who came. She was having a challenge even with her mobility. And one thing that struck me with her was her focus on studying the Christian Science literature. I went to her room one time and she was reading her Science and Health. I noticed that she had marked almost every page, and I thought of my original copy. And one thing that surprised me was that she told me that she had read Science and Health 35 from cover to cover 35 times. And every time she was done reading, she would put a mark. So as we were having this conversation, I realized I was talking to somebody who was actively working on her healing mission. She did not stay long before she was ready to go back home completely healed. So she left after a few months, and her story has really resonated with me.
My practice of Christian Science is off the chart since I've been working here. I have ample opportunity to work with my thinking about every aspect of what I do day in, day out. I recognize and listen like a little soldier on my consciousness all the time. And when I'm uncomfortable or discomforted or annoyed or anything that is not from the kingdom of heaven, I get on top of it. And if it doesn't yield, I get a practitioner to help me. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then it manifests in what I'm doing, whatever I'm doing with patients, friends, people. I've lost focus on whatever the problem is, and I become a better thinker, and the situation restores its harmony.
When I was about graduating from college, I was already thinking of what I can do as a career. And because previously I had already served church as clerk, and that position requires so much commitment to church, and this raised a desire to serve church much more, and that led me naturally to look for a church-related job. And I decided to do nursing because I found myself to express many of the quality required for a Christian Science nurse. So when I was looking for where I could go, the motto of the list is one of my favorite passages in the Bible. The leaves of the trees were for the healing of the nation. And the leaves, each employee, everyone that is involved in the organization of the institution, is that leaves that are helping for the healing of people coming and are blessing mankind.
I like the way that the leaves help me to improve what I know about to help, but now I have a confidential that I can help better when I practice Christian Science nursing.
One of my favorite things that we've worked with recently is our new vision statement, which I absolutely love. It's uniting in love to rise higher in Christian Science nursing. And I love this simplicity of it, yet it's so profound. And it just hits the mark on what we're doing here at the Leaves. That we are uniting in love, and we're always rising higher and higher in our practice of Christian Science nursing. And I see it everywhere, every day, coming from my fellow workers and also from the administrative staff, and just the support is wonderful.
I recently completed my training in level 4 in Christian Science nursing. I'm a quiet person, and I'm not really talkative. But during this training, considerable progress has been made, and I gained more confidence about talking in public. And as a supervisor, I learned to be more open communicate with colleagues, with patients and their families, and the Christian Science practitioner too, because sometimes we need support from them or to give them a report about the patient. For me, it was a huge realization, and what I noticed, it was there was a big improvement in my relationship with other colleagues during this time.
Christian Science nursing is a seamless garment, and we are one in God. Coming to work knowing that you are coming to join in together for this work, which is church, and helping each other through it all, because you come to understand that you're not doing it as a person. It is the union of all of you. Everyone is coming in to bring in their blessings and to be blessed too. So as a community, as a church, how I look at it, coming to work in church in a loving atmosphere with people that are thinking the same like you do brings the harmony and the beauty of it all. And it is wonderful being here.
I have always really loved the people that I work with here at the Leaves. You can just tell that their heart and their sincerity through everything that we do, and it has just been such a blessing. And then working with the patients, with the other Christian Science nurses, it's really wonderful to see different, or whatever the needs are, for there to be progress and improvement there as we progress toward that healing that they're praying for. And just to see different fears drop away, doubts, and to see that those improvements daily is also just a really wonderful thing. And we're all working together toward healing.
We are coming from the same basis of one mind, one God, and one idea. So with that in mind, whenever anything seems to be inharmonious, it's just a correction of thought back to the reality. So in that sense, it's really just going back to our fundamentals, or the foundation of what we've been learning since, at least for me, since Sunday school. Remembering who I am as a child of God and how that's true for everyone.
I've been thinking about Mrs. Eddy and the early church workers when the idea came up for them to build the mother church, how they work together, that unity of true brotherliness really contributed to them achieving their final goal, which was to see a church building standing on where a piece of land had been bought in Boston. And also I've been thinking about Jesus. He collected the 12 disciples and went to preach with them as a group. Of course, probably, he felt like he needed that support from the disciples. So it's the same thing that I think about when you're working here at the Leaves. We work as a unit, we work as a group, help each other, uplift each other, and support each other. And for us to continue doing that is when we feel like we will achieve our main goal, which is to create a spiritual healing atmosphere for the patients that we take care of, and for us too, as workers in this organization. I did admit a patient here in our facility, and she came with a belief of one side not working as it should be, both the leg and the hand. And I remember when the family was leaving, they told me that we need her back. And after they had left, we stayed with this individual in our facility for a couple of weeks. And with the kind of support that I think she was getting from the practitioner, and of course the family was in full support of why she was here. We did experience a wonderful healing, because in about 2-3 weeks she was able to walk freely in the hallway, and in a short while, the family came and picked her up, and off she went. We didn't even have to use a wheelchair to take her to the car. She just walked freely. That was amazing. It was a beautiful, wonderful demonstration for us to experience and to get to see that, yes, Christian Science does heal.
Johnson, the Executive Director at The Leaves, and I am so happy to be able to introduce to you Cindy Safronoff, an independent scholar, author, and podcaster. She began researching the history of Christian Science branch church movement for the centennial of Third Church of Christ Scientists in Seattle, Washington. This resulted in her 2020 narrative nonfiction book, Dedication: Building the Seattle Branch Churches of Mary Baker Eddy's Church, a Centennial Story, Part 1, 1889 to 1929. This book was great. It won the gold in the Illumination Book Awards for exemplary Christian books, among other awards. And Cindy has been invited to speak on this topic to national audiences around the country and internationally on 3 continents. The audio version of the book, her podcast, Dedication, a Centennial Story, has more than 11,000 downloads, with listeners in almost every U.S. state and more than 44 countries. This branch church's story has relevance beyond Seattle, and today she is going to share some of what she has learned in 6 years of in-depth research. This isn't just mere nostalgia for a past era, but it's to inspire ideas for going forward. And that's why we're so happy to have Cindy join us today. So thank you so much for being here. Can you tell me why you were attracted to the Leaves annual meeting theme for this year, Cindy?
Yeah, I love that idea of working together with one purpose and being, like-minded, one accord, one mind, because I really feel like that more than anything else, that one idea expresses the spirit of the early Christian Science branch church builders, and I find that spirit so inspiring and really exciting and motivating. And as soon as I started doing this research and reading the documents from those early branch churches, I could feel the energy of that, that era when it's just this explosive growth. And I could feel, it was like that, Mrs. Eddy says, feel the divine energy of spirit bringing us into newness of life. And I immediately started sharing stories, and I found so many different audiences of people who were interested in the story. And so that's why I decided to do the book and the podcast. To give you an idea of the change for me, I quit my career of 30 years and went full-time into Christian Science as a career, and to spend all my time learning about those early branch churches, both then and now.
So tell me a little bit about this story that you're laying out for people in this book.
Okay. Well, so it's got a 130-year story arc. So I start 1889 and I take it to basically the present day. And I got the essence of the story from a 1945 committee report that I found at Third Church in Seattle, from the Building and Dedication Committee of the Churches of Christ Scientists, Seattle. And in this, it was a lengthy report, and they talked about the previous 15 years and how the Seattle branch churches had been working together to support each other through some of the most difficult times of the Great Depression and World War II. And so that report is really at the heart of the Dedication Centennial story. The plot is that they are trying to establish Christian Science by getting it like everywhere. I mean, they were trying to put a branch church in every district, getting Christian Science literature into every kind of organization and engage with every kind of demographic group in any way they could. The protagonists are the branch church builders acting through organization, including joint activities. And like every chapter that I've written, I tend to have like one hero who, you know, some church member who stepped up at some moment in time and took action. But the overall hero of the whole story arc, especially in the mid 20th century, is the Joint Dedication Committee. Now, the villain is not a personal villain. There's no bad guys. There's no evil people in this story. The villain is disunity. And so the villain, whenever the villain rears its ugly head, our hero is impelled to take unifying action. So yeah, so in this 1945 Joint Dedication Report, they basically describe the villain. That any kind of conflict, whether it's inside the church or with world events, they saw as a symptom of disunity. And so they use the term the so-called forces of evil, expressed in disruption, disintegration, and destruction. That was just disunity being expressed. And remember, this was written during World War II. There were unspeakable horrors going on daily. They saw war as just a symptom of disunity and the effect of a universal belief in minds many. And so their solution to the problem was to demonstrate unity. And they wanted to have a larger thought of church. So to them, it was all about understanding church better. To have it be this sense of universal love, embracing the whole world in one grand brotherhood. And just to give you an idea how powerful this joint dedication work was, the Seattle churches kept building even through World War II. And so they were dedicating a brand new church they had just built while the boys from their Sunday school were off in the Pacific fighting the Battle of Okinawa. And this dedication work just lifted everyone's thought. And the Joint Dedication Committee in this report in 1945, they said that they believed that their work on demonstrating unity protected the United States of America from attack from the enemies. And I found it just incredibly inspiring just reading their report. Like I said, it changed my life, and that's really why I'm here with you today.
Well, what a great example of working together with one purpose. So can you speak a little bit more about how what you found in your research about what Mrs. Eddy felt about her church members working together?
Yeah. I think it's definitely, we all want to, understand how Mrs. Eddy saw things. As I see it, Mrs. Eddy set the standard for cooperative church building with the original Mother Church project. And, this was in 1894. And I think that building project was a very significant development for a lot of reasons. It got everyone on board with the idea of Christian Science being a church organization, because initially it was seen as a healing system, and not everyone was really sure that Christian Science should be a religion with churches and buildings. The Mother Church Project got the followers organized. It got them working from a spiritual basis beyond healing sickness. And they had to, because this building project was seemingly impossible. Mrs. Eddy said they had to build and pay for the whole thing in 1 year. Now, a major construction project for any organization in any time, to do it in 1 year would be incredibly difficult. And 1894 was a year of severe economic depression. So it really did seem impossible, but they did it. They completed it on the last day of the year as the clock struck midnight, just in time to hold church services the next morning. So amazing story told by Joseph Armstrong in his book, The Building of the Mother Church. And those branch church building committees, they read Joseph Armstrong's book, they studied it, they took it very seriously as an assignment. But like for us today, our discussion, I think it's really important to recognize that the Mother Church was not just built and supported by the local Boston area Christian Scientists. It was the whole body of Christian Scientists all over the world that worked to support it. So the architecture of the Mother Church is amazing, but maybe the most important learning lesson that Mrs. Eddy gave them was this importance of unity, working together.
So in your research, what are some good examples you ran across of church members working together?
Well, the best example early on when Mrs. Eddy was around was Chicago. You know, after the Mother Church was built, there was this huge building boom of branch church construction projects. And I think Chicago has special significance because it was the first real stronghold of Christian Science outside of Boston. And because Mrs. Eddy visited there. And she later wrote that her heart hovers around the Chicago churches. So in Chicago, they were building those big, grand neoclassical church edifices just in rapid succession, just one after another. And all the churches contributed to each one. And Mrs. Eddy, and they kept asking Mrs. Eddy, like, is this okay? And her approval of the Chicago cooperation was mentioned in the Christian Science periodicals. And then later, the 6 Chicago churches united in giving a major financial gift to the building fund for the project in Concord, New Hampshire. Mrs. Eddy wrote a thank you letter to Chicago churches, and she said, "It is unity, the bond of perfectness, the 1,000-fold expansion that will engirdle the world, unity, which unfolds the thought most within us into the great and better, the sum of all reality and good. This unity is reserved wisdom and strength. It builds upon the rock, against which envy, enmity, or malice beat in vain." And in Seattle, in that 1945 committee report that was mentioned earlier, they said that they were inspired by Chicago. They wrote, "Chicago was spoken of by our leader as the wonder of the Western Hemisphere, and was a great inspiration to the field because of the unity of purpose shown by helping one another build and dedicate their church edifices." And in Seattle in 1907, they made a unity resolution. So there, at that time, there was only one church in Seattle, but it was bursting at the seams, and it was just about to start spinning off new churches in rapid succession. And there was a church member who had just moved to Seattle from Chicago, and he made a resolution at a business meeting, and it was which passed with broad support. It was an agreement for all Christian Scientists in Seattle to always support all building projects as though it were their own. And the purpose of this was for the Seattle field to develop in unity.
So do you only see branch churches who overcome stuff in the Seattle area, or do you have others?
Now there's definitely others. And one I know of is in your part of the world, in Texas, in Dallas. I mean, I think the story of Third Church Dallas is really a great example, because, you know, that was during the Great Depression. That was, you know, the Great Depression had just begun, which was a really big deal, you know, and it was, it was tough times. But it was after this infamous stock market crash in October 1929 that the members of Third Church Dallas voted to build a church, start a building project. You know, I mean, talk about counterintuitive, but it worked out. They were able to build even during really hard economic conditions. and they succeeded in completing it in 1931. So, I mean, those early branch churches, they had this different idea of economics. I found throughout the branch church's internal records, the most quoted citation by Mary Baker Eddy from Science and Health was, "Giving does not impoverish us in the service of our Maker, neither does withholding enrich us." That was practically their mantra.
Their theme.
Yeah, and I think it's so easy to assume that in the old days when they had those huge churches, and we all hear stories about how they were just, overflowing with people, you assume that they were just overflowing with money. So, oh yeah, it was easy for them to build those really expensive churches. Well, no, it was really hard. And I've not found a single church at any period of time where it was not broke and running a budget deficit. They didn't have reserve funds. There was no endowments. They just lived hand to mouth, and they spent every dollar that came in. So a lot of times they were behind on paying their bills. But I found examples where when they got behind financially, they would actually look for ways to be generous. And I think they saw it as a way to break out of the mindset of lack. Again, giving does not impoverish us in the service of our Maker, neither does withholding enrich us. And they really took that statement seriously.
So instead of, I think a lot, we seem to want to pull together when we're like, oh, supplies running short, I better hold on to a little bit more. And these ones were actually reaching out to see how they could be more generous with others.
Yeah. And in Seattle, it was during the Great Depression that the Seattle Joint Dedication Committee really got going, because they built the big old churches during the good economic times in the 1920s. And then the Depression hit. And that's when they really had to band together, and they worked together to pay off every single mortgage of every branch church in the area. So, and that was really a golden era of joint activities too. They created all kinds of joint activities to do charity work and to do outreach. And they really got ambitious. They started building pavilions at world fairs and expos and just doing all kinds of things. So the branch church members, of course, had to pay for these things. They were constantly being encouraged to be more generous with their church collections. But the idea was they were supposed to demonstrate supply individually and then give of their abundance.
You see other examples besides in branch churches of people working together for the Christian Science movement?
Yeah, well, I think Christian Science nursing facilities are a great example too. And during so around this time in the Great Depression, then the Seattle churches actually were supporting the Ardenwood Christian Science nursing facility in San Francisco. That was a major construction project. And the idea of it was to serve all the Christian Scientists in the Western states. And the Seattle branch churches were making contributions to Ardenwood consistently for several years. And especially as the building project was in the last phase, they were making pretty large contributions too. Like I found Fourth Church, which was one of the biggest churches, 1,200 seat auditorium with 2 Sunday services. They contributed as much as half of their third Sunday collection to Ardenwood.
Well, and when I think about the Leaves' history, from what I understood of it, Houston had raised money to create a Christian Science nursing facility in the Houston area, and Dallas was working on trying to raise the money. Houston was farther along in raising the funds, and Dallas had more people resources, I would say, more people willing to dig in and do the work, but less funding. And Houston actually sent their funding over to Dallas to help create one Christian Science nursing facility, and that's how the Leaves was kind of originated, which
Wow.
is really neat that this combined effort between Houston and Dallas area. So
Yeah, that's great.
well, so I think it's interesting to think about, that God, of course, is leading us, and that even in the face of mighty villains who try to slay our heroes, we're there to listen to Him. We're there to block that out, to see that it really is nothing, and to be able to move on and work through that to progress our churches and our movement and Christian Science nursing through that seeming lack or sickness, or whatever may try to present itself, whatever error tries to bring to the table. We're here to see that God really is the only power, and if He says build a boat in the middle of the desert, all right, I guess there's reason to do that. And,
Yeah.
but we have to be willing to do the work and to listen to Him and to follow through on that. So I really love that you're putting these stories together from branch churches who have done that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they were very driven by a sense of mission. Just, establish Christian Science, get it everywhere. They just, any opportunity. If there was a need, the answer was yes.
Right. That speaks to that spirit of generous cooperation, I think.
Yeah. You just got to keep building. It just never stops. And they never stopped. As soon as they finished one project, then they asked themselves the question, okay, what more can we do? And they, I think Mrs. Eddy's definition of church, they took really seriously. I mean, so much of their work was just really going deep into the definition of church, whatever rests upon and proceeds from divine principle.
Here, I have it on my little post-it here, right on my computer, but where Mary Baker Eddy said, in Permanency of the Mother Church in its manual, organization is a simple matter for all its importance. It is simply a matter of doing things by working together.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that what they were living by?
Yeah.
That need to work together, because even if we have the ability to be able to do so much on our own, working together is a strength and never a weakness. And being able to demonstrate that, that is very important, I think, for our movement. So something I'm looking forward to demonstrating more and more myself.
Yeah. What a great opportunity you have. And, what a beautiful vision for your organization.
Well, and thank you so much for your beautiful vision and bringing it to us today, Cindy. I really appreciate you being here with us, and I hope that our readers will. Here, I'll give another little flash of the book, and can't wait to see what you bring out next. So looking forward to that. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So glad that you could be here with us today, John. So this is John Cochran. He's a Christian Science practitioner, and he's also on the Communities of Christian Caring group. And we've brought him in today to talk to us a little bit about what all he's been doing, because he's been doing some really good stuff for the movement. So what do you have to share with us today, John?
Well, I got to thinking that It's a really interesting history, but that's pretty time consuming, and I tend to stretch my stories out. So we'll just kind of start with, that this group started a few years ago, and we came up with a vision statement and a mission statement. The vision statement was that we wanted to encourage and support the natural tendency of each one of us to love and care for each other. Well, then our mission statement was to support individuals, small groups, or Christian Science organizations so that they could meet simple needs of individuals in their Christian Science communities and support healing. And the group of us, had lots of experience in Christian Science nursing. And what we saw was that, this was a big endeavor. And, as we started comparing notes, we saw that we wanted this effort to be sustainable. We're a small group, and this is a large mission. We kind of thought about it like a fire. You spend all this time, building a fire and putting it together and everything, light the match, and then you walk away and think you don't have anything to do for it forever. It doesn't make sense. So we thought of this outreach, helping and supporting each other more in terms of relationship and not just events or activities. So if we're thinking about relationships, then we all know of situations where, you have the experts from some far place far off, and they swoop in with an answer, and they share with everyone, and they spend a few days educating everybody on how to perform those tasks that they've deemed will be helpful. And then they fly off, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, and most often it doesn't. So we thought, it's not about us coming up with an answer. It's really that each and every situation is going to be different. It's going to be unique. And so what's needed for sustainability is going to be a group, and it's going to be not only just local interest, but local commitment. You have to be committed to a relationship. It's not just, hi, honey, I love you, and nothing else for 30 years. And why a group? Well, oftentimes you'll have an individual and they get all excited and they do things, but they get burned out. It can happen in any situation. So to sustain the effort, it's going to take a group. There's a wonderful African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Well, we realized we wanted to go far, so we would have to do it together. We just realized that divine love would bring us what we need. This was God's idea anyway. So why not let him determine what steps we were to take? So soon enough, we got there was a group that was very interested, and we helped them put on a conference. It was a group from a metro area of kind of loose-knit individuals from various churches, but they were on fire, but they just didn't seem to kind of know where to go. So we had a conference, they really gelled, they came up with some great ideas, and that group is really going strong now. In fact, they've moved from being able to meet needs in that metropolitan area to that whole state. So that was one. And then again, someone else asks for some support. So we supported them, with another conference. But each situation is different. We then decided with our communities of Christian caring, affectionately called COCC, that we would start a support group for advocates. Now, we all kind of know what an advocate is. It's a lawyer, but it's also somebody who advocates for, or is your cheerleader in a certain area. So we wanted to form a support group for these cheerleaders all over the country who were trying to come together and support their Christian Science communities. So we decided we would do that. We would have a topic and then general fruitage and sharing. So we meet every 3 months, and it's wonderful. We have 25 or so people from all over the country, actually a couple of people from different parts of the world too join us. We then keep in touch to see how the groups are progressing. And the core group, the COCC, is always available to help, to go in, to support. Also in this last year, we started a website, very modest, but with some videos, some ideas about how to support each other and things. And one thing I should say, and we can be very clear, when we talk about meeting simple needs, we're not, I'll repeat, we're not talking about replacing the Christian Science nurse. This is not the point of this committee. It's to help meet simple needs that people have. And in the conference that kind of got this group started, what came out was that appears to be a shortage of Christian Science nurses. Well, we thought, well, if there's a shortage of Christian Science nurses, and yet Christian Science nurses are going into somebody's home to read the Bible lesson or to do some grocery shopping, that's wonderful. But can a church member do that maybe? There was a couple, and the husband was going to be going away, traveling for a business trip or something like that. Anyway, and they figured that the wife would be fine by herself. But then, kind of at the last moment, they thought, well, maybe she would need some help or some support or something like that. So they reached out. They didn't know who to reach out to, so they reached out to a Christian Science nursing facility in a different state. There wasn't one in their state. They reached out to one in their state. Well, the individual that they talked with was the ED, wonderful individual on our group. So as they talked, the ED it was of the Christian Science nursing organization realized that they didn't have a Christian Science nurse that they could send. And they could have just said, sorry, we don't have anybody we can send. Wish we could help you, but we can't. But no, they said, well, we don't have that, but what about your church? Is there anybody in your church maybe could help you? What are your church members and things? So they started naming church members and different things. Well, it turns out that one of the church members was also part of our group. And so the ED got in touch with that church member. She said, and she's a very dynamic, amazing woman. She's kind of in charge of this larger metro area group. And so she said, I'm going to be out of town, unfortunately, but we've got a really good group in that area where that woman is. So she said, I'll make a couple of phone calls. Well, she made a couple of phone calls to the group. Somebody said, I know that woman. I'd be more than happy to support her in any way I can. So that woman called the woman in need, and the need was met. So, so I think it's sometimes Christian Science nursing facilities might think, we don't have the manpower. Well, it may not be that we have to do it, but we're in the conversation helping to find the answer. And to me, that demonstrates a sense of community. So, it might sound goofy, but in one sense, the answer, the end game doesn't really matter. It's in the process we've come together and shared and cared for each other.
It sounds really like this group is about encouraging, like you said, cheerleading others to help nurture and care for others within their church.
Exactly.
So can you give me some examples of how those conferences, like, have you gotten fruitage back, and what's occurred after those conferences?
Well, the interesting thing is that it's kind of an organic thing. And sometimes I think we have a sense that, we'll go in and again, we'll do a conference, but more often than not, there's already an interest there. For example, there is a state and that decided that a group of churches would just come together for social events. So great. Well, and one of the individuals that was part of that was also involved with our advocate support group. So we were just talking and sharing, and they were saying that they were coming together as a social group. But we were wondering, do you ever talk about needs that you all have? Well, no, not really. We're not quite so sure about that. We just want to get together. But what it was realized in that process is that coming together socially, you get to know people. And when you get to know people, you get to trust them. And when you trust them, you open up to them. You share. You're more willing to help them because they're not just a name, but they're someone that you know. And that they've really formed a wonderful group. Well, they heard that one of the churches was offering a Sunday school workshop. So they said, well, this looks great. Let's talk it up in our churches. So they took it back and not only just, you didn't just put a post-it, or a poster, on the bulletin board or something like that, or give it to the first reader, make an announcement. They really talked and shared about it. Well, there was overwhelming participation in that workshop, people from not only that state, but from another state. And then it was so sweet because some of the attendees said, although there hadn't been one of these in many years, they said, oh, we should have one of these every year. Now, how often do you have people saying, let's have another meeting, let's have another church meeting? But that's, I think, what can happen when we share, we participate, we come together. And this was a group too that was pretty amazing. I said that they started as a social group, but then a need did come up within that group, and it was very interesting because the individual that they became aware of had been estranged from their church for many years. There had been a run-in, and they just had not gone. They said, nope, I'm not going to church. But through connection with this group and kind of coming to these picnics, these social events, they got to thinking, and they ended up going to church. And they ended up rejoining that church and becoming an active member.
That's awesome.
So I don't think we can underestimate the power of just, again, coming together, caring for each other. And to me, it all gets back to relationship. First, our relationship with God, and then our relationship with each other, because Christ Jesus gave us two great commandments. And I think that we're pretty good with this one, studying and getting to know God, although we can always do better with that. But sometimes we're not so good with loving our neighbor as ourselves. We get caught up in a variety of activities, or this is my life, or I'll give God that time on Sunday and maybe Wednesday, be on a couple of committees. But the kids have too many things to do, and there's just too much going on. Have we crowded out church, and have we kind of forgotten that a major part of our reason to be is to love and care for each other? So I think that again, what's going on now in the Christian Science movement, Christian Science nursing, in our society, is this divine love's way of saying, okay, guys, you need to come together and you need to care about each other. You need to get over these differences. Now, that's simplistic, but still, we must be able to do that. And we can. So anyway.
Well, I think that's why this group and what you've been doing has been so important to bring to light in our theme for annual meeting of working together with one purpose. Thank you so much, John, for bringing this to us today and letting more people know about it and about the good that's going on right now.
Well, and I think everybody can know that there's all kinds of good going on right in your community, but we want to be alert to it. We want to be alert, and we don't want to kind of shy away from participating, because it's just one of the greatest things that there is. It does take work, but it's one of the greatest things that there is.
Right. And it's up to each of us to demonstrate it within our own churches, within our own communities, and be able to reach and help others.
Exactly. Yes, you've got it.
Well, thank you so much, John.
You are so welcome.
Well, I'm so excited to be able to share with you Patty Nurnberg, a journalistic Christian Science nurse who has been doing some wonderful work out in the field and specifically for the leaves for a bit as well. We've had Patty out to help us give workshops, church workshops to our community. And she's done that for the past 2 years with us, and just really grateful to have her experience and be able to bring that. And we've done, let's see, I think we're probably around 15 workshops or so.
I think so.
That we've done, all the way from Santa Fe and Albuquerque to right here in Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Austin. So we've really tried to reach out to our church communities and just let them know that we're here and that we're here to support them. Like, that's the whole reason for the leaves, and the whole reason for Christian Science nurses are to, support Christian scientists. So here we are with Patty, and I've just been really grateful for her. And she has some wonderful work, I think, to share with you.
Well, thanks, Jennifer. It's been a great time. We've had a great time.
We have
a lot of fun. And it seems like there's just a hungering in our branch church communities for opportunities to sit and talk with each other about how do we love our neighbor. And that's just been an honor to be part of.
Tell me a little bit about what you've been doing this year, Patty.
I've been across the USA this year. And I've been up in Canada helping with some training up in Canada. As a reviewer for the commission, I've been to the UK and to Switzerland. And then I've also done training with a wonderful group of Christian Science nurses in South Africa. And it's just been a wonderful experience. I've learned that I have to go into each situation with a great sense of humility and not to tell them what to do, but to listen and then give ideas, ask questions, and really work as part of their team. And I think we've just made some great progress.
How do you share with others without it feeling judgmental, I guess?
Well, one of the things I've learned
probably cut
the training aspect is that I was kind of used to training in a certain way. I would have supplies, I'd have a classroom, I'd have all these things, and they came to me. When I go to them, it came to me not to take anything, just to see what they have there. And that took a lot of trust in God, but I was so grateful that I did that. This is from Miscellaneous Writings, 1883 to 1896, page 135. And this is from a letter our leader wrote to the National Christian Science Association in 1888, before she asked it to be dissolved. And after saying that she wouldn't be present, she changed her mind and went. And these two sentences have been really helpful to me. So our leader says, our watchwords are truth and love. And if we abide in these, they will abound in us, and we will be one in heart, one in motive, purpose, pursuit. Abiding in love, not one of you can be separated from me, and the sweet sense of journeying on together, doing unto others as ye would they should do unto you, conquers all opposition, surmounts all obstacles, and secures success. I love those three things. So when I go into community, it was important to build a sense of that we are journeying on together, and that I'm not there to lead them. I may be there to ask some questions, point out some ideas that have worked for me. Just building that sense of how we were going to journey together.
I think what stands out to me, working with you for so long, is that when you do this and you go somewhere new, it's really creating that comfort level first, and that familiarity, and then when you bring about an idea, it's done in such an easy and graceful way without it feeling pointed. The other part that I wanted to touch on was when you go somewhere new, and like, so when you went to Canada, or when you went to South Africa, you did it without taking anything with you, no nursing supplies or anything, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So your Bible and your science and health were your supply?
That's it. Took the pastor with me.
Took the pastor with you. Well, and I guess what that brings me to is, what Jesus asked his disciples to do. He asked them to just go out and really find that sense of community, and to leaven the thought of that community with word, and so I think it's inspiring that we're still doing that today. Each of us probably in our own way, and
that's right.
And that you're doing it in this way is so fun to hear about. So tell us a little bit about Canadian and European and an African community. What do you see there that's inspiring you?
In all these communities, there was a wonderful sense of trust in God, that God would show them the way. There was a sense of great sincerity. It was just so humbling to see these dedicated church members knowing that they could be available to help their neighbor, help their other church members. And I saw that over and over again. And especially in South Africa, there were a couple of nights when I went to sleep saying, I don't know how we're going to solve this problem, Father. Those were my prayers that night. Well, in the morning, there was always an answer. And it didn't come from me. Usually God gave someone else the answer, and they would come in and say, what about this? And I would go, oh yeah, that's the answer.
Well, and I remember just doing workshops with you for so long, that idea of community is different for each group that we visit. And, each of them are unique and very individual in their sense of community and their practice. And so reaching each of them is different, you really do have to be listening that whole time to know what's the right next thing to say that could help be an idea for them. And sometimes it's not saying anything, like you said, you're just praying about it and somebody else has it and you're like, oh, there it is.
There it is.
So,
and I think you and I were very firm on the fact that we needed to build an atmosphere in our workshops of trust, and that they would feel comfortable asking any question that they wanted to ask. It was wonderful to see that fear dissipate. And then we could just have a group discussion, and you'd see others say, you could see the shoulders go down and go, oh yeah, I can ask this question. And we'll get a loving answer, and we'll have a discussion that really builds a sense of loving our neighbors. It's every single workshop's different. I've really enjoyed that. Yeah. It's just so wonderful to listen, to see to hear God telling us what this group would need or would like.
I think it's just lovely that that sense of community from, you know, Bible times is still being experienced now and in the now. Somebody just told me today, oh, have you ever looked up the definition of ever? And they said, basically, it's just like always. It's now, it's present, always. And what a great way to be thinking about how we're all working together with one purpose for one community, you know, and being able to help one another, support one another, love one another. That's our, you know, our base job. And to hear how you're doing it in your work as a Christian Science nurse and Christian Science nurses training instructor is just really, really cool to hear about. So thank you so much for being here with us, Patty, and for sharing that today.
Well, and Jennifer, thank you for including me in your wonderful work. And thanks for this opportunity to share with others.
Thank you so much for joining us in this annual meeting. We are here to support you and work together in our Christian Science community for healing. We stay here because of your support of us. We know this comes in a variety of forms, and we'd love your support, whether as charitable contributions, your interest in becoming a Christian Science nurse, and even subscribing to our newsletters and following us on social media. We love to hear from you, so please reach out or come visit us. And thanks again for tuning in.
We are so grateful for all the good that's occurring here at the Leaves.
It's a working together as one that is bringing healing at the Leaves and to the community.
We are one in God.
And we're all working together toward healing.
We are coming from the same basis of one mind, one God, and one idea.
A major part of our reason to be is to love and care for each other.
We're a family. All of us at the Leaves work together with one purpose.
With God as the one purpose, the mission cannot fail to succeed.
This is how we work together and progress our movement forward.